Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
Welcome to my podcast, where we are going to talk about a lifestyle with dogs and throw in a few life lessons along the way. Whether you're a hound hunter, bird dog enthusiast, running setters, pointers, retrievers, or a flat-out running dog junkie, this podcast is for you. I am your host, Heath Hyatt, a certified law enforcement canine trainer with over 3 decades of personal and professional training and handling experience. It's time for me to pay it forward. So grab your leads, lace up those boots, and come and join me on this lifelong process of teaching, training, and learning. Do you like to be outdoors like I do? If so, unlock the wilderness with onX Maps. It is your ultimate guide to exploring, hunting, and conquering the great outdoors. With detailed maps, real-time tracking, and exclusive access to public and private lands, onX Maps is your key to adventure. Discover the possibilities and never get lost again with onX. So subscribe today using the promo code K920. Letter K, number 920, and know where you stand. Come on in, everybody. Pull you up a chair and welcome to this week's episode of What's Up Wednesday. So this podcast is going to drop, and it'll be the first week of Virginia training season, which I could not be more excited about. And my dogs are definitely going to be excited. Getting them out after being back from Canada, I've had to put them up for a month and a half. I did not get to make a trip up north and hunt for a couple days with Uncle Bob. So they've just kind of been hanging out here at the house and running around the yard, and we let them out to feed and clean pens. And, you know, I've got these 4 heathens that I've got to figure out some way to balance that out. And then I've got the 2-year, well, they're 1.5 years and 14, 16 months old. I've got them, got to get them headed in the right direction. So it's going to be a challenging 2 months for me. And then December will roll around, and I guess I'm going to have to pretty much run 2 packs, run a couple here and a couple there, and switch them in and out so that the young dogs get enough exposure, and I'm not leaving the old dogs home all the time. When I say old dogs, you know what we're talking about. So training season, I'm really going to try to hunt the younger set of dogs and give them every opportunity to learn and go from there. So I know that training season's been in for a lot of other states, you know, Vermont and Maine, Wisconsin, you know, North Carolina, you can run year round. Idaho's been in, and their spring season's been in, Canada. So guys going to hunt Virginia, good luck to you. Hope you have a great training season. And we're going to be going back and forth for the next couple months, and we'll talk about how the dogs are doing and, you know, what progress we're making, or if we're having any back sets and having to redo some things. And I'm sure that's coming. That's the great thing about training, right? So I'll keep you guys posted over the next couple months. It's going to be busy. August, September, October is busy. November, hope we get to do a little traveling in November. And then December rolls around. It doesn't look like the fruit crop's been very good, so that's a little worrisome. I'm not sure about the acorns yet. I've seen a couple people posting some trees that were budding, so let's hope the acorn crop is good, and that way we have the sows that can produce, go into the den, and do what they need to do to make next year just as good or better. So there we go for Virginia. Are you looking to unlock your dog's full potential and give them the best nutrition possible for peak performance? Then look no further. Inukshuk has what you're looking for. Inukshuk's nutrient-dense formulas are crafted to keep your dog's energy high and performance top-notch. Packed with premium proteins and essential fats, Inukshuk delivers the balanced nutrition your dog needs to thrive. From hunting dogs to police canines, Inukshuk is trusted by professionals. Give your dog the power of peak performance with Inukshuk professional dog food. Just got back from vacation. Spent a week at the beach, my favorite place. That's with some sarcasm, but I do it because the family likes to go, right? I do fish a lot. I surf fish and fish canal. We fished the canals, but the fishing was horrible. The reason I bring that up is I posted some short clips of the Darkenergy, the Poseidon Pro that I've been using. And man, I used it on my phone, charged the iPad multiple times with the one bank. And I'm really pleased with it. And I know that when it drops the new solar panel, the 18-watt solar panel will be out. I can't wait to get that. I'm probably going to purchase me another Pro, maybe even two of them, because I can use them for different places, and that way I'm not having to shuffle the one around. So I'm definitely going to buy me another one and get the solar panel. So I just want to tell you guys, if y'all need to charge on the go, you need a charging bank away from a power source, I'm super, super pleased with what I've got, and I can't wait to get another one and get the solar panel. I'm going to use the solar panel a lot on my boat, so I'm excited for that. And if you guys decide you want to do it, use that promo code 4, and that'll help you out a little bit, 15% discount off of it. So when that new one drops, I'm definitely buying it. So if you guys tuned in to Fielder's Gone to Dogs, I don't know how many dogs Fielder's going to anymore. He's slowing down. We're going to have to get him one of those combat chairs, put him in it so he can climb around the mountains. I'm just picking. But Fielder and Wes, one of my good friends, did a podcast it dropped on July 17th. And basically, they were talking about me and who I am. And, very honored and humbled to have two good friends of mine, talk about the things that, we've done together, and the good, the bad, and all the in between. But Wesley talked about one thing that kind of stuck with me. And as a listener, I thought, well, what does that mean? So I figured nobody better to tell the story than me, right? Which Wesley said that, he hunted with me back when I had Frosty and Belle and Ring and Clyde and Smokey and Sam. And Wesley talked about me going through hard times and almost quitting. And I did. So I want to tell you the story about that and how that transpired and what happened to get me to that point. So if y'all guys just bear with me a little bit, I'm going to run you back in time and reminisce a little bit while I'm back there. So in 94, I got my first dogs. Y'all have all heard me talk about it. I got 2 plot dogs. I got a Butch and Jill, a Weems bred dog that was a Me Too and full. And I got a bias bred plot dog from a guy in West Virginia. And I spent the first couple of years basically chasing him through the woods, chasing them through the woods. Literally, I didn't have a tracking collar. I carried a 9-volt flashlight that you got, I guess at the time, you got it from the Family Dollar. And we carried an old 20 gauge Remington pump shotgun that I had. That's what we used. And I've had one of the guys on, Chad Wheeler, you've heard him. Chad was one of the guys that was hunting with me then. And, another buddy of mine, Anthony Wiley, who ended up having some blue dogs out of Earl McKinney stuff later on in this time period. But So basically for the 2 years, I run around and followed dogs around, not knowing what was going on, just running through the woods like a band. That's what I did. Tried to stay as close to them as I could. Spent a lot of times looking for dogs because didn't have a tracking collar, couldn't afford it, and turn them loose. And sometimes they'd cross mountains running junk and doing whatever else. And it was 3 or 4 days later, you pick them up. But that was my initial experience. But I loved being in the woods, and there was no greater thing than having a dog. So those two paired together, that's what propelled me to kind of where I'm at today. So along that journey, I was able to get in with some guys that bear hunted. We leased a big tract of land, run into them back there deer hunting or late season turkey hunting. And I asked if I could come along. They said, sure. They took me along, and, they chewed several bear, and my dog turned them loose with theirs and, made several trees and hunted several areas. But I never felt a part of that group. So through a mutual friend who I'd went to school with, graduated with, and his dad now is one of my best mentors, I got associated with another group. And I started hunting with that group for a couple years, and that's actually where I ended up getting my Frosty dog, is through that relationship, or that hunting party. And a couple years had went through, so I got Frosty. So let me tell you about 1996. That was a significant year for me. I ended up getting Frosty, and I ended up getting Brandy in June of 1996. And y'all all heard the story about Brandy. She was my little plot female who taught me more about coon hunting and hunting with hounds. Probably her and Frosty were my two teachers. And you kind of say, how's a dog teach you? Well, I didn't know where coons lived. I didn't know where bear traveled. I didn't know, where they bedded. I didn't know those things. And those dogs taught me how to be a better woodsman. Those dogs taught me. So hunting with them for a year or two, a lot of things that went on. Again, I'm young, I'm dumb, I'm very inexperienced, but I'm hard-headed. And sometimes it's a fault, a bad fault for me. Stubborn, hard-headed, independent. So I was hunting with this group, and a lot of things went on that I didn't care for, and I didn't understand. So after a hunt one day, we were walking out of the mountains. It was a pretty good hike out. They had taken a bear, and I was told that when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans do. And, that didn't sit well with me. The young, probably 25-year-old me, I don't know, 24, 25. I was like, no, I don't agree with that. So that was the last day that I hunted with that group. And I decided to do it on my own. And the only dog that I had at that time, well, I had a couple dogs, but Frosty was my main dog. So it took me, so that's 96, 97. It took me a couple years. Well, I need to back up because the timeline's not going to make sense if I don't explain this. It took me about 3 years to tree a bear on my own. Now, does that mean that I didn't see a bear? No, it did not. My dogs would get with other people that was hunting across the mountain or in the same valley, and I ended up at several trees and so on and so forth. And we also got to put into play that this is before 2000, and bear were hard to come by. They were not like they are right now. And I feel like, I'm going to put this little plug in here, I feel like with the mange creeping down the state of Virginia south, that we're going to end up seeing that again. And you got to think it's going to take 15 to 20 years for it to repopulate if it hits here. And I feel like it is. So back then, we did not tree a lot of bear. So seeing a couple of bear a year was the norm for most people. But I did not tree any by myself. When I say by myself, me and my dogs, or anybody that was hunting with me. So into that third year, early September. Now then, that's when we couldn't hunt back in August. Early September, I ended up treeing a bear by myself, and the three dogs that were on it was Belle, Clyde, and Frosty. And it was so dark. The fog was heavy that morning. Like, I could tell you everything about this. The fog was heavy that morning. It had misted the night before. Down in the valley that I was in, there was no sunlight. This was probably before 8 o'clock. And I sat underneath that tree for a good hour and was just soaking it up, because that was the first time that I was able to accomplish this with no help. So during that 3 years, man, it was a school of hard knocks for me. Like, I wasn't going with somebody, so I couldn't watch and learn. I was doing everything on my own, and it was basically OJT. We call that on the job training, right? So I go out today and something would happen, and then tomorrow I'd go out and I'd try to do something different. So it was a learning process. And there was a lot of growing pains with that too. Frustration, a lot of miles. I can tell you that me and one of my good friends, Paul Hale, we put so many miles on one December. We walked, and I didn't know better. Again, this is part of that learning process. I walked a valley I walked a mountainside every day, the same mountainside every day for the month of December, and found one track in the snow, one track. So the lessons that I learned were very hard and humbling. You realize that, I got to get my crap together because this is not working, right? So anyway, I was able to tree a bear that day, and it was very, very self-fulfilling. Nobody was with me. I did it on my own. It was probably more luck than anything else. And I'm very blessed that was the start of where I am now. But there's a lot of ups and downs that has come with that. So over the next couple of years, I treat enough bear. I treat enough to keep me happy. And even back then, I was very particular on, I remember one December, I treed 5 bear. That's it. Treed 5 bear with just my dogs, and never harvested a bear. And a lot of people told me I was a fool. And looking back at it now, yeah, maybe I probably should have. But at the time, I thought that was the right thing to do. So that's what I did. So let's go to 2004. Okay, so 96, 2004. That's 8 years. Frosty was 8 years old. He was 6 months old when I got him. So if you're trying to do the math in your head, he was 6 months old when I got him in 96. So Frosty was 8. We had went to Canada, and Frosty he just wasn't acting right. Was not acting right. Was not making races, like very lethargic, so on and so forth. But that same year, 2004, I bought Ring. Ring was out of AR. You heard Fielder talk about that. Almost a Ring. That's how he got his name. And AR was Frosty's brother. So Ring was Frosty's nephew. I bought him off of Lance Hutton, and that's where Frosty come from. I bought Frosty from Lance too. And Canada was we killed 2 nice bear, over 200 pounds, both of them, 250s, somewhere in there. But Frosty wasn't right. So when I got home back to Virginia, I took Frosty to my vet, Doc Taylor. And as soon as she seen him, she goes, Heath, he's got lymphoma. I'm like, well, I don't know what that is. It's cancer. Everybody knows what that is now, right? And right now, it's a telltale sign because his lymph nodes on his chest and on the back of his legs, right above his where his Achilles is, were swollen up. And I seen it, but I didn't know what it was. And as soon as Doc seen it, she was like, yeah, here you go. So here was my options. Take him to tech and spend about $4,000. Now, got to remember, this is in 2004. Spend about $2,000 and give him chemo treatments and hopefully save him. And I didn't have the money at the time. I had just gotten divorced. Didn't have the money. So she gave me some medication, and she said, all right, give this to him. And she said, Heath, it could be a month, it could be 6 months, it could be 2 months. You just don't know. I said, okay, Doc. So took Frosty home, and I started keeping him in my room at night. So I'd put him out in the kennel in the daytime, and at night after work or whatever. And I was coon hunting pretty hard then too, but I'd bring him in at night. He'd sleep in the floor of the room with me. So in September, so we got back in September, about 2 weeks later, was going hunting one morning. And this is where Wesley comes in. Was going hunting one morning. Frosty was standing at the gate of the pen, like wagging his tail, being Frosty. So I loaded Ring, Bell, and Smokey up. That's the 3 dogs that I took. Loaded them up. I walked back down to the pen, and it was like he was saying, Dad, I want to go. Dad, I want to go. So I loaded Frosty up. We went into an area where you have to walk a lot, and we ended up treeing a bear that day. About, 3-4 miles around the mountain. We ended up treeing a bear. It was a pretty short race. Wasn't too long. Probably didn't last 20, 30 minutes. They come around a big point, come back right in front of us and treed right in the holler below us. Got to hear the whole race except where they went around that point. We lost them for a few minutes. But they come right back in here, and Ring was leading, Ring was leading the race. So anyway, the cup popped up treed. We went down to them. Had an average bear, 150, 170 pounds. He was full of pokeberries, and we know that because he decided to crop dust us while we were under the tree tying up dogs. Never can forget those, right? But Wesley was with me that day. That was one of his very first hunts that he had been with me. That was the last day, that last bear, the last trip that Frosty ever made to the woods. So that was 20-something of September. Frosty died October 4th. 2004. And it crushed me. And I know as a grown man sitting here saying that it literally broke me is nonsense. But it did. Frosty was one of the first dogs that taught me how to hunt. Frosty taught me what a bear did, how they ran, places they go. He taught me things that I didn't have no human to teach me. And he was as close to me as a best friend. He went everywhere with me, did everything. I squirrel hunted that dog as a pup. I drove around endless nights with me or Chad or Anthony, was trying to find something across the road to dump him out on. And when he passed, he died in the floor right beside my bed, right at my bed. It literally crushed me. So I loaded him up that morning. I took him to my dad's, and I was so upset that I couldn't bury him. Like I could not emotionally hold it together. And this is I'm 2004. So I'm 28 years old, 27, 28 years old. And having to have your dad bury a dog because you're not emotionally stable enough to do it. But that's what was going on at that point in time. And Dad buried him up underneath the oak tree right where he lives today. And that oak tree's got some fine hounds laying under rest underneath it. Brandy, Frosty, Smokey, Sam. Some dogs that I would love to have in today's era just to see what they do. But anyway, I come home and tried to forget about it, but I couldn't forget about it. And I had started my new job. I was a year into my new job. And I was at the point where I'm just going to quit. So there's a reason that I didn't quit. And I feel like a lot of you guys have probably been here before. The reason I didn't quit is because I knew that in the financial shape that I was in, that if I sold the rest of my dogs and my equipment and my dog box, that I would not be able to recoup from. I wouldn't be able to do it again. And you got to think, I'd been in this 10 years at this point in time, 10 years. And it had taken me that long to get a nice dog box, a tracking system and enough collars to put on the dogs and to do the things that we do as hunters, kennels, dog houses, stuff like that. So I toughed it out. December rolls around and I did not hunt very hard at all. I hunted on weekends when I were off, so I can only hunt on Saturdays. So I would say I took the first week off. So I probably hunted 10 days, maybe during December season. Was not motivated. So the next year rolled around, make a trip to New York, and turned loose. Me and Rodney turned loose on a bait. Ring makes a loop and goes left-handed. We turn the other dogs into him. They go right-handed. And they go out of hearing. Well, he comes back into hearing right behind them, traveling the same path they took. Rodney and I was having a conversation. We're like, well, he probably just run backwards and got turned around. But he went almost out of hearing and fell treed. And Rodney and I are looking at each other. And Rodney's like, is he that loud that I cannot hear those other dogs? I said, Rodney, I don't hear them either. And he said, well, they went the same place. I said, yeah. So we got in the truck and we drove down this beat up road and back into the country where he was at. Could hear him a lot better, but we couldn't hear nothing but him. So we go into him. Now, guys, we got the beep collars, right? We go into him. He's treed, got a nice bear treed. Pull him off the tree, try to find the other dogs where they're 2 ridges over. We go over there and they're treed on another bear. So 2 bear just ended up split. So my hopes and my motivation changed a little bit. So come back home. And guys, for the next 2 years, so Ring was just turning 2. Okay. For the next 2 years, I can't tell you the gas, the times that I slept in the cab of my truck, chasing that scoundrel, following him mountain ranges, over mountain ranges, into different zip codes. Just completely frustrating, bad. So during that period, that 2-year period after Frosty passed, I'm still trying to talk myself off the ledge. And we had went to Maine, me and Bob and old Chris Irvin had went to Maine in September. We did not tree a bear. Don't even think we run a bear. I think we had a moose race. But it was pretty disheartening. And on the drive home, I'm running all this through my head. What am I going to do? This, that, everything else. And when I get home, I tell myself I'm going to give him till December. All right. I'm going to give him till December. And if things don't change, I cannot keep doing what I'm doing. Like, he's wearing me out. physically and mentally, like for sure. So get home. December rolls around. The very first day of bear season, we got a light snow on. Find a track, put him in it with the other dogs. We put the other dogs in it too. It wasn't just him. And 18 days in a row. This is 2007. Okay. 18 days in a row, we treed bear. And the dog was never the same. I had slick treeing issues with him, and we're going to talk about that. I had trash issues with him. Never did get him broke. In my mind at that time, he was pretty good. If I was rigging him, I could tell the difference in the tone of his bark, whether it was right or not. But when you're free casting him, he'd get out of pocket on you, and he'd be gone. And you'd either catch him treed or run him down in the next state. Like that was the story of Ring. But that booger treated a lot of bear for me, with and without other dogs. A lot of bear. In fact, to the point where Frosty was a super nice dog. You didn't have to worry about him. If you lost him, just go back to where you turned him loose. He'll be back there before long. You didn't have to worry about him running junk. And I never did break him. Like this was him on his own. Ring was a different style of dog, a headache to say the least. But he treated a lot of game. And if I'm looking at it objectively and from a third party, not being biased, Ring treated a lot more bear than Frosty did. But the bear population also had grown and times had changed. So I tell you that to tell you to follow up what Wesley said about the good times, the bad times of me almost quitting. Like it's not always been easy. I'm stubborn. I'm hard-headed. I like to do things on my own. And if you tell me I can't, I'm going to do everything in my power to prove you wrong. And that's just who I am. So I had Smokey and Sam come along. I started treeing more bear. Things were going really good. Then I took a job where I'm at now. So 8 years where I was hunting different country, changed over and went through another divorce. Lost a lot of the dogs that I had to sell them because of living situation and places to keep them. I did sell 2 of my good dogs to, my good friend. And I have a female out of him that I still have today. But the dogs that I had were not producing like I'd been accustomed to. And again, the thought starts going through your mind, spending a lot of money, spending a lot of time, a lot of headache, doing what I love to do. Is it worth it? So I took another spell where I didn't hunt a whole lot during 1 year for sure, but that was due to the divorce. And then after I got cleared up from that, I got my heart and my mind right. And I'm like, all right, you know how to do this. You've done it before. You know what to expect. Let's roll with it. So now I'm in the rebuilding phase. You've heard us talk about that. I'm 5 years in. Spook kind of changed everything for me and become my Ring, even though he's not Ring. But, he revamped everything and things have turned around. Now, how long I can maintain that, I don't know. But I'm going to try. So just to clear up that statement, because in my mind, I was wondering, well, what happened? Well, that's what happened. Frosty passed away. It was, and I mean, that's 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Holy smokes. And to this day, he's still my foundation. I'm still partial to that dog. A lot of great memories with that dog. A lot of great memories. And I still use him a lot as a guide or a a measuring stick for some of the dogs that I've had over the time. But what I'm telling you is, guys, don't quit. Put your head down. If you love the hounds and what they stand for and the true connection you have with nature when you have them, then take a step back, adjust yourself, dust your britches off, and get right back at it, because that's what I had to do. So I hope that sums it up a little bit for you, or I hope that clarifies some questions. Even I had questions because I wanted to know more, and that's the story, and I'm sticking to it, right? All right, let's talk about pups real quick. So puppies are 5.5 weeks old during this recording. I have introduced them to water already. We did that about 3 weeks. We had a kiddie pool. We put a little bit of water in. As soon as we got back from the beach, the first day, I started scent imprinting, and I posted a short reel with the very first day that I done it. You guys seen exactly what I seen. There was no editing. There was no, doing it 3 or 4 times. That was it. I turned the camera on, set the scent pad down. 1 comes over, then 2 comes over, and then they go away, and then 2 more come over. And they really showed a lot of interest in that. They were probably overly excited. I would have liked to seen them a little bit more, I don't want to say mellow, but a little bit less amped on it. I put the feed down. They get it. And every time we feed from that point on, there will be scent imprinting for about 10 to 12 days. And then I'll change it over to something else. I get a lot of questions, and this is something that I want to talk to you guys about. I get a lot of questions about, when do you do this, and when do you do that, and when do you know, guys, that's a hard question, and I can't rightfully answer it because I'm not there. I don't know what you're seeing and what you're doing. I don't know your experience level, and this is our 4th litter since I've got since I dusted my britches off, right? And the first litter, the A litter, we always do the ENS, okay? Good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter. We like to have our hands on the dogs, and we start at day 2. I know guys that don't touch them until they're a couple weeks old. I know people that are, touching them nonstop. None of it's wrong. None of it's wrong. In fact, I wanted to clarify something else for you. Guys, my way is just a way. It's not the way, right? The way means it's the only way to do it. And if you've been around any type of training, I don't care if it's horses, I don't care if it's dogs, I don't care if it's dolphins, killer whales. We know that don't work out too well. There's 1,000 ways to do it. And what you do today, you will tweak and make it more fitting your style tomorrow. And that's what I do with these pups. We did the A litter a certain way. We kept them till they was about 6 months old. Of course, the B litter's out here now. This is going to be the C litter, right? So we're naming these some of the C's. And then I had an accidental litter. So every time I have a litter, I'm doing something a little different, and I may actually move up. Like I may do something a little earlier than I did last time. I may do something a little later. I may tweak a thing or two to make it form because I seen a behavior, or I seen that it didn't work like I wanted it to, or maybe it worked too good and I need to do it earlier. So all those things go into raising, for me to raise puppies. So, it's just like riding a bike. The first time you get on it, you ride down the road, you're probably going to fall over because you're not keeping your balance. And then the second time you get on it, you're going to do a little bit better, but you're still going to be unsteady. And then the third and the fourth time, you're getting better and better. And by the end of the week, you and your buddies are outside making ramps to jump stuff because you've got that much confidence and you're that good at it. And the same thing goes into training. I bought Vice, my shepherd, at 3.5 months old, and he was my project. I was going to learn all this motivational stuff and how to do things that I had not done before. And this was in 2013, 14. Yeah, 13. And I made a lot of mistakes with him. I did a lot of good. I did a lot of learning, and I learned from my mistakes. You can't drop the kibble on the ground if you want the dog looking at you, right? Because dogs learn from repetition. If you drop the food on the ground, sooner or later, they're going to start looking to the ground for the food and not looking to you for direction. That was a thing that I didn't know. I was putting too much food in my hand. So it's little things like that you learn along the way. So the same thing with the puppies. I'm doing things a little different here and there. I will tell you, this litter is wired for sound. Out of the 4 litters that we've had, I think this litter is more advanced at this stage of their life. And when I say that, I don't mean that they're running and treeing. They're bolder. They are fearless. And I don't really care for that. I wished it would be in moderation. I want them to be curious, not fearless. They're daredevils. I mean, they're not even 6 weeks old yet, and they're running up and down the steps on my front porch, which is 8 foot high. Like, other puppies are usually 3 months old before they're doing it. They're more venturous, like they are going up to the road, and they're moving, they're adventurous. They're going further out. They're ranging further. So I see some problems that I'm going to have with some of this behavior, because some of the things, I want to tone it down a little bit. And we can say, either the genetics are there or they're not. And if they're there, it's easier to bring it back than it is to move it forward, because you're not going to move it forward a lot, right? But they're wired. Like, they're wired. One of the traits that I'm seeing out of them that I'm not crazy about is they're a little bit more mouthy. And I had a guy ask me, what do you mean they're mouthy? They whine a little more than I would care for. And I don't mean that they can't never say a word, right? But if they're hungry, you're going to know it, because they are not going to shut up until you put food in front of them. And we're pretty good about, feeding them, making sure they got enough food. Pearl has pretty much pushed them aside, so we're making sure that the food intake is plenty. She's weaned them a lot faster than I would like. I would like it to be another week, but she's doing everything she can to avoid them. So we're leaving her in there at nighttime, and in the daytime, we're letting the pups are running loose from time daylight till dark. And then we're putting them back with her at night. And I'll do that for a couple more nights, and then I'll pretty much take her out permanently, because she's done. Her milk's drying up, and so on and so forth. But the thing about the pups is, one of the things that I see, a mistake that I see more often than not, is knowing when to back it down, or knowing when to just put it up and say, okay, it's a pup, let it be a pup. I've got a video that I'm going to show. I'm going to drop it in a reel here. And I'm testing their prey drive at 5.5 weeks old. So there's 6 puppies. I've got 3 that are pretty driven. I've got 1 that's probably over the top driven. And then I got 3 that are nonchalantly, yeah, okay, and then I'm done. Attention span is very short. So with the driven puppy, like, she's going to be a handful, but it's going to be a good handful, because you're not going to distract her very easily. When she puts her mind to something, she's going to be on it. We just got to channel that into the right thing. But I also know when to back it down and not overdo it, not overstimulate. We talk about vision and visual stuff. and this is something, another mistake I see. All right, I use a stick with a hide on it, right? My pups will only see that 3 or 4 times in their life. That's it. I'm not going out there every day and doing it for 15, 20 minutes. I do it enough to check what I want to check, and I put it up. That's all it's for. If I overstimulate them visually, then I'm already classical conditioning them to use their eyes and not their nose. So you have to find that fine balance between that. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying you better know when, or you're going to have problems on down the road, because you're instilling this at a very young age. And even in the police dog world, there's numerous videos about using the pole with the rag on it to stimulate a dog, bring him in drive, do the things you want to build it. But Justin Rigney puts out a really good video explaining how you're overdoing it and how you're discouraging the dog if you don't reward at certain times during that session. So anyway, just some things to think about. Like I said, I get a lot of questions. I don't have all the answers. It's hard when you're not physically there doing it, involved in it. And we love fooling with our pups. We love seeing them develop. We love seeing the traits at these dogs as they grow, where they come from. This litter here, I can go back about 7 generations on the majority, not all, but the majority of the dogs in this pedigree. I've hunted with them. I know people that have personally hunted with them and raised them. So I'm curious to see what this brings out of these pups. So next week, we got Nelson Cole on. Guys, you're not want to miss that. A great conversation with a man that's been in over 55 years. A lot of knowledge comes from him. And on the next What's Up Wednesday, we're going to talk about some things that I think is going to interest you a whole lot, which is slick treeing. I'm going to talk about how I take care of that at work. Same purpose, different setup. We're going to talk about it. And I hope everybody's having a great training season. I hope all the dogs are healthy and not beat up. And we'll catch you. And me and Nelson will be on next week. So looking forward to having you guys back. See you then.